tap to pay. Tonight, a warning. The Better Business Bureau is seeing more scams targeting tap to pay users.
They say scammers are using ghost tapping to secretly charge you.
In 2025 alone, tap to pay scams surged by 62% across the U.S., draining over $286 million from American bank accounts. And if you're over 50, you're the #1 target. This scam is so sophisticated that it happens while your card never leaves your wallet, and it can drain your checking account from a single bump in a crowded store. Today, I'm breaking down exactly how ghost tapping works and the simple steps to protect every dollar you have. Watch until the end. I'll show you the exact defense strategy that stops this scam cold. Let's get into it. The invisible bump that costs you big. It usually starts with something so minor you forget it seconds later. A bump in a crowded store, a brush past you on public transport, someone apologizing while reaching for the same door. That moment can cost you hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. According to Visa's 2023 Global Fraud Report, contactless payment fraud increased by 23% year over year, with the sharpest rise tied to proximity-based theft. Not online breaches, not card skimmers, physical closeness. The scammers most often rely on environmental cover, crowded malls, transit stations, music festivals, airports. And here's the part that should truly bother you. Most victims never feel anything. Scammers are exploiting NFC, near-field communication, the same tech that makes tap-to-pay fast and convenient. Using discrete handheld readers or modified Android devices, they can trigger unauthorized microtransactions simply by getting close enough. And they don't need your phone unlocked. In 2022, which, the UK's consumer watchdog, demonstrated that contactless cards and phones could be charged up to £300 in rapid succession without triggering instant security blocks. Similar findings were echoed by Kaspersky's Mobile Security Report in 2023, which warned that NFC relay attacks were no longer theoretical. Here's the psychology scammers lean on. People are conditioned to ignore small charges. The FTC's Consumer Sentinel Network, 2024, found that fraud losses under $20 are reported at less than half the rate of larger transactions, meaning scammers know exactly where the ignore zone is for most people. Paula, a 52-year-old Chicago teacher, reported her experience at a holiday market last December. She was browsing stalls when a man accidentally bumped into her while she had her phone in her coat pocket. Paula didn't feel a thing. Later that evening, her banking app alerted her to 3 small charges: $4.99 at a vending service, $9.99 for digital goods, and $14.99 to an unknown merchant. Total loss, $29.97. But over the next week, similar charges appeared daily, totaling $420 before she froze her accounts. Here's what Paula didn't know: that bump was deliberate. The scammer had a wireless POS, point-of-sale device, available cheaply online, set to initiate low-value transactions via NFC. Your tap-to-pay card or mobile wallet broadcasts data at close range, and for amounts under $50, no PIN or signature is needed. By getting within inches, they trigger a charge without physical contact. It's called ghost tapping because it's invisible, like a ghost swiping your money. Even worse, many victims mentally rewrite the moment after the fact. Maybe I tapped it myself. Maybe it was that coffee. That hesitation delays reporting. Javelin Strategy and research in 2023 found that 67% of fraud victims wait more than 24 hours before reporting suspicious activity, and delay dramatically reduces recovery chances. By the time you or anyone that's been scammed notices, the scammer is gone, the device wiped, the transaction marked as authorized, and the damage is already done to your bank account. If you think a single tap can't hurt you, that assumption is exactly how this scam stays invisible. How the tap-to-pay scam truly works. This is a step-by-step breakdown of how this invisible scam works. Step 1. Preparation. Scammers acquire portable card readers, or NFC-enabled devices, often modified smartphones or cheap terminals bought from shady online markets. These mimic legitimate merchant tools but are programmed to charge to fraudulent accounts. They target areas with high foot traffic where close contact is normal and unnoticed. Step 2. Proximity and distraction. In a crowd, the scammer positions themselves near your wallet, purse, or phone. They might bump you, stand too close in line, or even use a backpack with the device hidden inside. The NFC range is short, about 4 inches, so they need to get intimate, but distractions like noise or movement make it easy. Once close, they activate the reader to tap your device, initiating a small transaction under the no verification threshold. threshold, usually $50 to $100 depending on your bank. Step 3. The charge and cover-up. The transaction processes instantly, often as a miscellaneous or vending purchase to avoid scrutiny. Scammers keep amounts low to evade immediate alerts, $1 to $25 per hit. They might hit multiple victims in one outing, racking up hundreds. If they're posing as a vendor, they rush you through the tap so you miss the overcharge. Step 4. Cash out and repeat. Funds go to prepaid cards or crypto wallets controlled by the scammers. They move fast, draining what they can before accounts are frozen. Data skimmed during the tap can also be sold on the dark web for further fraud, like online purchases or cloning cards. A 45-year-old Florida accountant named Tom fell victim during a concert. A woman next to him kept dancing into his space. By the end of the night, he'd been charged 4 times for $15 each at event services. Tom only noticed when his card was declined for dinner the next day. His total loss, $320, plus hours fighting with his bank. In reality, this scam only feels mysterious because most people imagine fraud as something that happens inside a phone or behind a screen. That assumption is wrong. Tap-to-pay fraud happens in the open, using the same systems banks encourage you to trust. According to MasterCard's Global Payments Report from 2024, more than 90% of contactless transactions under $50 are processed without biometric or PIN verification, depending on bank settings and region. That convenience is exactly what scammers exploit. Here's the key thing to understand early. Nothing is being hacked. Your device is simply doing what it was designed to do. So when victims finally open their banking app and see unfamiliar charges, the damage isn't just financial, it's physical, emotional, and psychological. This is why you lose money. But why now? That's because the targets are ripe and scammers know it. Why Tap to Pay is being targeted right now. This scam didn't just appear out of nowhere. It arrived at the exact moment conditions became perfect. In 2024, Statista reported that over 60% of in-store transactions in the United States were contactless, a sharp increase from pre-pandemic levels. Banks pushed Tap to Pay aggressively after COVID, positioning it as cleaner, faster, and safer than cash or chip cards. What rarely came with that rollout was education about its limits. And scammers love this because no physical theft needed. Unlike traditional skimming, they don't touch your card. NFC makes it wireless and quick. Low barriers to entry. Portable readers are cheap and easy to get, some as low as $50 online. Criminal networks share modified apps to automate charges. People also trust biometrics too much. Face ID and fingerprints feel like hard barriers, but they don't always activate during NFC interactions. Kaspersky's 2024 Mobile Threat Landscape warned that users often assume biometric prompts are universal safeguards, when in reality they are conditional. That false confidence lowers vigilance. Regulatory gaps. Many banks have high no-PIN thresholds for convenience, and small charges slip under fraud detection radars. Transaction limits quietly increased. Many banks raised their no-verification thresholds to reduce checkout friction. That decision made sense for customer experience, but it also expanded the window scammers operate in. Higher limits mean more room for test charges that don't immediately trigger alarms. Post-pandemic shift. With more people ditching cash and swipes for taps, the attack surface grew. BBB reports show a 150% spike in ghost tapping complaints since summer 2025, tied to events and travel recovery. Profit margins. Small hits add up with low risk. Prosecution is rare since amounts are petty theft territory. Tap to Pay isn't being targeted because it's weak, it's being targeted because it's everywhere, trusted, and rarely questioned. Why this remains devastatingly effective? This scam doesn't win by force. It wins by timing, psychology, and silence. Unlike traditional fraud that shocks victims into action, Tap to Pay scams are designed to feel ordinary. The charge looks normal, the amount feels forgettable, and that hesitation, maybe I spent that, is exactly what scammers need. Recall that only 67% of fraud victims notice unauthorized charges more than 24 hours after they occur, and delays drastically reduce recovery success. We expect scams via email or calls, not a casual brush-by. Confirmation bias makes us dismiss small charges as forgotten purchases. The scam doesn't steal your money first, it steals your certainty. The deeper reason emerges: banks trust patterns more than people. When a transaction matches expected behavior, behavior, in-person, low-value, contactless, automated systems rarely intervene. A fraud monitoring report noted that low-value contactless payments are significantly less likely to trigger real-time alerts compared to online purchases. That creates a quiet window where multiple charges can pass before anyone reacts. Then comes authority bias. When victims finally contact their bank, they're told the transaction was authorized. That phrase shuts conversations down. Banks see it as authorized since your device tapped. According to CFPB complaint data, disputes involving contactless, card-present transactions had some of the lowest reversal rates across all fraud categories. Simply put, recovery rates are low, only 40 to 60% per BBB data. Once the system logs agreement, human explanations carry less weight. This scam is devastating because by the time you realize something is wrong, the system has already decided nothing is. But the scary part is finding out there are different variants these scammers don't want you knowing. The variants of tap to pay, keeping scammers ahead. The biggest mistake people make is thinking tap to pay fraud is a single trick. It isn't. It's a rotating playbook, and scammers switch methods the moment one starts getting attention. According to Europol's Internet Organized Crime Threat Assessment, contactless payment fraud has evolved into multivariant operations, often run by small mobile groups that adapt faster than banks update defenses. That's the first danger. You're never facing the same scam twice. Crowd bump variation. This happens in packed spaces, malls, buses, concerts. A scammer brushes past you, often with an apology, while carrying a concealed NFC reader or phone. The bump creates plausible deniability. If the setting feels chaotic, most of the time that's not accidental, it's tactical. Fake vendor variation. Here, scammers pose as legitimate sellers, pop-up stands, parking attendants, transit helpers, or street vendors. You're encouraged to tap quickly for speed. In some cases, victims report being double charged or charged for higher amounts than shown. They rush the tap, overcharging $50 for a $5 item while you can't see the screen. The FTC warned that fraudulent mobile payment requests often appear legitimate when tied to in-person interactions, making you doubt it less. Charity scam. Variation. These scammers exploit urgency and emotion. Disaster relief, medical aid, religious causes. Fraudsters with clipboards or tablets ask for tap donations. They set high amounts or skim data during the process. Donation-based scams usually surge during a crisis period like a hurricane aftermath, with mobile payments increasingly used because they feel fast and benevolent. People hesitate to question giving. The relay attack. Variation. This is the most technical and more advanced variation. Scammers use apps to relay your NFC signal to a remote device, allowing charges from afar after initial data capture. According to Kaspersky's Mobile Threat Landscape 2023, relay attacks allow scammers to split the transaction, one device near the victim, another at a real terminal elsewhere. To banks, it looks like a normal in-store tap. The malware-linked variation. This is the scariest one, and the one you need to pay attention for. If your phone's infected via phishing, scammers remotely activate NFC for ghost taps without physical proximity. Imagine receiving an email or clicking a link only for charges of $10, $20, or $30 to be deducted from your account without your knowledge. Different methods, same outcome. Your tap becomes their leverage before you even realize you participated. The warning signs everyone misses. The biggest mistake you can make is waiting for fraud to look dramatic. Tap-to-pay scams almost never do. There's no sudden empty account, no giant charge that screams alert. Instead, the warning signs are subtle, ordinary, and easy to explain away, which is exactly why they work. Fraud hides best when it looks familiar. These are red flags you should look out for. Unrecognized merchants with generic names, things like abbreviated business titles, payment processors, or locations that don't quite match where you've been. Duplicate charges for the same amount. This is especially when they appear minutes apart. These are often test transactions designed to see whether you'll react. Transactions labeled offline, pending, or completed without confirmation should never be ignored. Offline contactless transactions bypass real-time checks and are frequently used in fraudulent scenarios. Many victims only realize something is wrong once those charges finalize. Foreign merchant IDs disguised as local businesses. The description looks normal, but the back-end routing isn't. Banks see this as legitimate processing. You, on the other hand, don't know what to question. Unexpected small charges. $1 to $25 hits from unknown merchants like vending or MySki services. Don't ignore them. They're tests. Crowded close encounters. Someone lingering too close or bumping repeatedly. That's not accidental. Rushed transactions. Vendors hurrying the tap without showing the amount or business name. Phone battery drain or heat. Unusual NFC activity can cause this. Alerts for unusual proximity. Apps like Home Assistant and NFC tools notify of NFC attempts. Enable them. The warning signs aren't hidden. They simply go unnoticed, and that's what lets this scam finish its job. The multi-account ripple effect. If you think the damage these criminals can do with this scam stops at one card, you're in for a long ride. Tap-to-pay scams are often designed as entry points, not one-off hits. Once a transaction clears without resistance, scammers treat that account as validated. One tap can expose linked accounts. Scammers skim card details for online fraud, maxing credit lines or transferring from savings. According to FICO's 2024 Fraud Intelligence Update, 41% of contactless fraud victims experienced attempted charges on additional accounts within 72 hours. The goal is to see what else is connected. Secondary targets usually include backup cards stored in the same digital wallet, linked bank accounts, or even recently used payment apps. Because these systems share behavioral data, the scammer doesn't need to start from scratch. They already know the thresholds you didn't notice. Why banks will not refund you once you fall victim. This is the part you aren't warned about until it's too late. When tap-to-pay fraud happens, banks don't evaluate it the same way they evaluate hacked accounts or stolen card numbers. They evaluate it based on how the transaction was logged, not how it fell to you. And most contactless scams are categorized as card-present, customer-initiated transactions. That label changes everything. Under U.S. Regulation E, banks are required to reimburse unauthorized electronic transfers, but authorized payments are excluded. Once the system records that your card or device was physically present, banks treat the payment as valid by default. System outranks stories. Then the deeper issue becomes clear. Banks rely heavily on automated logs, timestamps, terminal IDs, and proximity verification. If those logs show a successful NFC handshake, the burden shifts to you to prove you didn't authorize it. But most consumers can't. There's no signature, no PIN entry, no video footage, just data confirming the tap occurred and the payment cleared. As a result, no refund for you. The exact steps to take: immediately you spot suspicious activity. The moment you see a charge you don't recognize, the clock starts. Not hours, minutes. What you do first can decide whether the loss is reversible or permanent. Step 1. Freeze the card inside your banking app. Do not cancel it yet. Freezing preserves transaction data, which banks need for investigation. Cancellation too early can erase useful logs. Step 2. Open the transaction details and copy the merchant ID, not just the display name. Merchant IDs reveal routing information you can Google or give directly to fraud agents. Step 3. Call your bank's fraud line. You can find this at the back of your debit/credit card or their official website or app. Explicitly request a fraud affidavit. That phrase matters. It triggers a formal process rather than a casual dispute. Step 4. Ask for the transaction classification, specifically whether it's marked card present or offline contactless. Those terms determine how your case is handled. Step 5. Disable NFC temporarily in your phone settings. For Android, connections arrow NFC arrow off. For iOS, go to your wallet app and remove cards temporarily. This prevents follow-up attempts while the situation is active. Step 6. Check linked accounts and digital wallets for test charges. Scammers often strike twice within 24 to 72 hours. How to protect yourself and prevent you becoming a victim. Protecting yourself from tap-to-pay scams isn't about abandoning convenience. Most people never change default settings, and scammers depend on that. Start with your phone. On Android, enable NFC only when unlocked and disable background NFC access for unused apps. On iOS, remove cards from Apple Wallet when you're not actively using them, especially in crowded environments. Next, open your banking app and set custom contactless limits. Many banks allow you to lower per transaction or daily tap-to-pay caps, but they don't advertise it. Search your bank's name plus contactless spending limit to find the setting. Lastly, use RFID shielded wallets that are tested to ISO/IEC 14443 standards, not cheap sleeves with no certification. Don't forget to enable real-time push notifications. No amount is too small to be notified about. This scam thrives on our love for convenience, but with awareness, you can outsmart it. Average losses are $500 to $1,000, but prevention costs nothing. Have you been ghost tapped or spotted a suspicious bump?